yesterday.
Well, hello there, Justin.
This is Marco Bucci,
It's Marco.
a world-renowned artist who also happened to be the man that taught me everything I know about color, composition, and visual storytelling.
I'm thrilled to be here for another critique.
And this is me.
All my troubles seem so far away.
After Marco crushed all my dreams of becoming a professional illustrator.
Oh, I believe.
In yesterday. Let's back up 4 years. I was at the dentist getting a root canal when I received an email that I got accepted into Marco's personal mentorship program.
Just got back from the dentist, so half my face doesn't work. But nothing can get me down. I just got accepted into Marco Bucci's mentorship program. Very excited about this. Marco is the artist I look up to, and I'm really excited to do some one-on-one work with him. Kids floss. Just floss, brush your teeth twice a day.
I got to spend the next 8 weeks studying directly under Marco with 7 other students. This was the graduating piece I did in his mentorship. Fast forward 3.5 years, 6 months ago, I set out to re-illustrate it in an endeavor to prove to myself that I was no longer the same student I was 4 years ago. And in fact, I was no longer a student at all. So I wanted to go back to this illustration and prove to myself and to Marco that I was ready to be a professional illustrator. I reconnected with Marco and told him I was going to rework the illustration and asked if he would send a critique video. And Marco said yes. So I set out to turn this student piece into a professional illustration.
Everything changes every which way. You got to hold on to what you need.
Step 1 of 4 was to rethink the composition. More specifically, the composition needed to serve the story better. So this is a fun illustration as it stands, but you might not have even noticed the punchline. There's these 2 dogs sitting in a stroller, and the 2 kids are fighting on leashes. That's the joke, that's the punchline, and yet, because of the way this is constructed or composed, I think we are completely missing out on that. Another really big problem with this composition is the giant Beecher's cheese sign behind the kids. It's super distracting and confusing, like, is this an ad for Beecher's? Finally, I want to use shape size to create depth. One thing you notice is these 2 kids are the same size. The crowd of people is about the same size as the 2 kids and disconnected from the kids. The only thing that's actually working depth-wise is how small the mom is. But we can bring some serious clarity to this illustration if we push that crowd of people more into the background with their size, as well as putting some nice atmospheric perspective between them and the main subject. Overall, this composition just feels broken. We've got this island of people, the Beecher's cheese insanity. The 2 kids are really not the focal point, and we've totally missed the joke. So with that in mind, I started to build the drawing.
Hold on to what you need. And if I hide myself away, how could I go with the world around me? We can trust each other, always make things right.
The second thing I wanted to push in this new version was the character design. There's something very stagnant and ugly about the characters in the old version. So I made sure I was having a lot more fun, especially with the pugs. I'm really excited about how these pugs turned out. And then obviously that main character kid, the one who's facing us. His design, I'm really excited about too. These feel like the kinds of characters I can care about, and I can feel their emotions. I'm also really excited that this composition allowed us to have the mom in there. Although I am really struggling with her pose, and spoiler alert, I end up changing her pose when we get to the painting phase. She's the one part of this illustration, as I'm looking back at it, that I wish I had a little bit more time to spend on. I'm not quite sure I nailed her pose. And then as far as the crowd, I want them to be in the background, but I had this idea. We all know that the main joke here is that the dogs are on the stroller and the kids are fighting. But I thought of a B-roll joke as I was sketching this, and that is to add more animals into the background, including this cat in the foreground. And all the animals are noticing what's going on. Their eyes are focused on the fight, the kid fight, and they all look slightly concerned. Whereas all the humans are going to be on their phone. They've got headphones on, they're not paying attention. They're so sucked into their own personal life that they don't even notice what's happening right in front of them. They don't even notice kids fighting like dogs. And this is going to make my crowd more important. One of the things I talked about not liking about in my old illustration was that the crowd felt like an island. I think one of the reasons they felt like an island is they weren't important. They were literally just background. But now my crowd is important because they're a part of the story, and we need them to be not paying attention to the kids to push the statement and the humor of this scene.
What is more important than loving someone? La 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 la.
The third thing I wanted to change about this illustration was not relying on value contrast as a crutch, like a student might. This was really a near and dear change to my heart because I felt like I was making the right decision. I felt like this is how professionals think. Let me explain what I'm talking about by showing you a painting by Walter Everett. I'm absolutely obsessed with Walter Everett recently. What I love about Walter Everett is he's not afraid of keeping his values, and that's how light and dark his colors are, closer together. Notice how the shadows could be so much darker? I love this painting of his. But it takes you a minute when you are looking at it to realize what the main subject is. The viewer has to sit and absorb it, and it may take you a minute before you even realize this woman is in the painting. There's something really magical about that, and I love it. So, I'm putting together the value structure of my painting, and I'm thinking about that. I want to rely on color contrast and let the colors really play together by not letting my values get super dark and super light. So one way I'm going to do this is the kids in the foreground are going to have really bright primary color clothes. And this kid who's facing us is going to have orange hair. That's purposeful because I'm going to have a really heavy atmosphere behind him. So the crowd appears to be very blue. And that blue up against the orange hair is going to create the color contrast that I'm talking about. So I don't have to drop the kid's shadows super dark. I don't have to make his highlights super bright. I can really play in the middle grounds and hopefully get some of that magic that Walter Everett is able to create into my illustration here. All right, enough nerding out about Walter Everett and color contrast. Let's just paint.
Loving you makes the stars shine brighter. Yeah. One step closer to the heaven. Yeah. We are what we yes, we rule our own domain. Yeah, yeah. Keep our heads up high, pushing on like a chugging train. Loving you makes the world spin faster. Yeah. Ain't enough days in the week for us to kiss. Oh, we are explorers, we're seeking higher place. Oh, pulling out the reins when we find our home again.
So I got this far on the illustration, and then I got super busy. I had another illustration project come up that I couldn't turn down. It was so exciting, and I actually made videos about that one also in this video, and this video. But I was pretty bummed because this illustration project is my personal project. It's where I actually get to see how much I have improved as an illustrator. It's kind of the beginning of my YouTube channel. It's near and dear to my heart. I really wanted to get to it. And I was honestly disappointed that I couldn't get to my Marco Bucci critique video illustration sooner, but I'm actually so happy that I was as busy as I was and I couldn't get to this illustration, because doing these illustrations and making myself be the best illustrator I can in each one of them actually improved the final product of my Marco Bucci illustration so incredibly much. The other really cool thing about this illustration is I was willing to make big compositional changes to it throughout the entire process. Because I feel like when I'm illustrating, even when I'm really focusing on the composition and the thumbnailing stage, and I'm really focusing on getting the drawing right and all of that kind of stuff, I just don't know what I don't know until I actually start rendering it out. So as I started rendering it out, I realized these kids are way too small. This is my center, this is my focus. And so I had to blow them up a little bit, make them a little larger. And then I kept illustrating. I really loved where this was going. I loved the characters in it. Like this lady, I just loved the character of this lady. She was just added to the composition of this piece so much because we have these kids fighting in the streets and we have this woman walking and she's holding a cat with a beanie on. It's just weird. And I thought it added so much to this illustration. But as I kept illustrating, I realized she was drawing too much attention. Everything in the foreground was too big and it was taking away the focal point. And so I had to sacrifice her, which was really sad, but I think it was the right decision. And it was really cool for me personally to be able to give up all of the hours of thinking of what that woman needed to look like, creating her pose, actually rendering her out, and just at the last minute of this illustration, just chopping her out of it for the sake of the illustration. Without further ado, here is the final 20 hours of this illustration.
So swinging, so swinging, so swinging, so swinging, so swinging, so swinging, so swinging. Loving you make the land more beautiful. Every bird, bee, and tree sing a song for us. We are ramblers of our own device. In the dunes and dance the forest still the night. Na 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 na
The fourth and the final big change I want to make is kind of the icing on the cake. In order to unify this illustration even further, we want to make sure that everything in this scene is affected by the atmosphere and environment. So what we've got going here is a really distilled day. There's a really thick cloud as you're looking up into the sky. You can't even tell where the sky begins and these buildings end. I want the crowd of people to really start to mesh together, and all you can see is the bright screens of their phones popping out through the gray. As we get closer to the foreground, you can actually start to see the water droplets of this cloud. The background cloud starts to become mist as you get closer to the kids. And if the cloud is going to be that thick, well, I think there should be water, rainwater, sitting in the cracks of these cobblestones. Side note, I am super proud of these cobblestones. These cobblestones are awesome. I'm really excited about how they turned out. I don't usually paint in this style or get this detailed with things, but I really like how these cobblestones turned out. Might change the way I paint. Anyways, this final element is going to bring the whole illustration together, and it's bringing it together inside of this cloud. And I really like that. I'm really excited about that. All right, guys. The illustration is finished. Wow. All right, so next time you guys see me, Marco Bucci will be critiquing this illustration. I'm really excited. This has been a long process, and I'm excited about my mindset as I'm illustrating, and it comes from doing these kinds of projects. And so I'm so excited as I try to edge my way from student illustrator to professional. The goal really is that Marco looks at this and has tweaks, but not anything that next levels the illustration. But we'll see. So you'll see in about 3 seconds. But for me, it might be a little while. Marco said he's pretty busy right now. So here we go. 3 seconds. 1, 2. It is that time. Marco has sent the video. I'm nervous, guys. All of that work leading up to this moment. Wish me luck.
Well, hello there, Justin.
Hello, Marco. It's good and very nerve-wracking to see you right now.
It's Marco, and it's good to be back after, 4 years, maybe 5 years since we had that class together. And this is super cool. This is a redo of one of the pieces you did in that mentorship class. I'm thrilled to be here for another critique. Thanks for asking me. So let's see here. I've got the original loaded up as well. This is really cool. We got the same idea composed in two completely different ways, redrawn, and with the same spirit though, heavy on the foreground elements. That's been the same. But we got a lot more depth in here by way of this character. We also read that one because they're connected, not only with the way they're looking at each other, but also like the value system supports that. So like what I mean by that is if I went to grayscale this off, you've got the highest contrast in and around the characters. Now that's getting right into the critique here. That is the first thing I'm actually going to tweak. Is that yes, there is high contrast with the main characters, and that's working, but I think it could be better. You can see it in grayscale. Midground kid, the other half of this kid fight, is kind of blending with the background, especially his hair starting to blend back there. His skin tone separates, but it could be better contrast-wise.
Okay, I just want to pause it to say this is what we talked about earlier. Maybe Marco will prove me wrong, and I'm just completely wrong. But what I wanted to do was keep the grayscale pretty tight, and I didn't want to push it with super high contrast. I really wanted to play with color contrast. And so, yes, the hair doesn't stand out when you're in grayscale. But you'll notice when it's in color, like I talked about, it's an orange against a blue. So you get that contrast and you don't actually need value. And there's an interesting softness to that plays into my atmosphere. With that said, I'm worried. I wonder if I overthought it and Marco's about to just chew it apart.
Also, I think you could make a bit more use of the cast shadow on the cobblestones here to further separate the characters. I like the use of shadow here. There's a strange snowy effect. We'll see what we do with that. I like it. It adds texture, but it's maybe a little strange. Yeah.
It's mist, not snow. Shoot.
And then
I hate that. I hate when I think something is so clear and someone looks at my painting and it's not clear. And I don't hate it because they're wrong. I hate it because I saw it so clearly and it just frustrates me.
And the other thing that I'm noticing composition-wise is you've got this leg in the foreground that, these two legs here that are nice. It really puts the camera right on that ground because we're right in their feet. While I like it as a design choice, I do think it conflicts with this character. Let me go back to your original one. You see how this is where in this one particular area, the original's stronger. I do think the redo is stronger overall. I should have started with that. The redo is stronger overall. It's clearer. I like that dynamic perspective a little bit better.
Thank you. Well, at least it's better. We'll see where he goes. I'm really getting nervous here.
In this one, though, I really like how you get this, the full figure here. You get the parents' reaction as kind of a side focal point, a secondary focal point, basically. You're drawn to the kids the most, but then I like the mom's reaction there. Whereas here, you get the mom, but she's kind of cut off. And I would say that she's way more important than this leg is. So let's start there. That's the first thing I'm going to do. I have your illustration on a new layer here, so I can always A/B it. And what I'm going to do is select out this leg. 'Cause I like it. I want to see if I can keep it. It's just, is there a way? I'll keep the upper body where it is.
I knew that cat lady was going to be a problem. I knew it.
All right, what I want to do now is just kind of see if there's a place to put this leg that still makes it clear that it's someone else's leg. The person with the green coat here, we don't see their face. The person holding this cat, which is really cute, by the way. I like the cat. Yeah, something like this, where we see maybe 30% of it, the cuff of the leg, the pant leg there. And what this will do, I think, is it will give me room to get the running pose. Now we don't have to see the feet of the mom there, but it was unfortunate. It was cutting her off right at the butt there. It's kind of a tangent slicing her in half. All we want is to get, let me just reinforce this with a dark line. We just want to get the nature of her pose, because it's such a storytelling aspect of this scene, is the way the parents are trying to restrain the kids. Well, this one is being restrained by the stroller. This is the only kid being restrained by like just human pulling force. So we really want to get that. And I think while I'm here, we're just editing this pose. I want to further like get her more invested in pulling. Like, I think it'd be better if she's so off balance, like something like this. Basically just hips, get those hips back like that. Basically the idea is she's pulling this kid so much, or I say the kid is pulling her so much, kind of like anyone has a big dog and you're walking your huge dog, your dog is able to pull you off balance. This kid is doing that to her. Emphasize. Now she's got, this is her back arm. I'm just going to redesign the flow of it so it's not so symmetrical. And now that we've got this new real estate by moving the leg, that foreground leg, I mean, we can show her hand. We want this hand to be like used as a balancing mechanism. There we go. For the first time, I feel like this hand is right. Now the hand wasn't there before. Let's go back to, just to remind people, let's go back to the original. The hand is just kind of, oh, there it is. I didn't even see that. Okay, see that? I didn't see that until just now. That's her hand? Come on, Justin.
I have no excuse.
Let's get more out of that hand. There we go. So before, after, don't look at just the hand, look at the entire pose. She's being thrown off now. Just as I do that.
Yep, that's better. It is better. It's better.
I'm noticing that the foot, like I just rotated it, right? I rotated the bottom part of her body. Well, now I don't like the pose. Like it worked when you had it based on the pose. I think now it needs to be like, this needs to be back. Paint in the cobblestones. Paint. I'm just going to quickly fill in these gaps, sampling what you've done. I like the cobblestones.
Don't go after my cobblestones.
There's a bit more form we can squeeze in.
No. Marco, no. Not my cobblestones, man. You can make fun of my mom, but not my cobblestones.
I'm also going to, likewise, darken the shadow here in the foreground. For the foreground kid, that is. I wonder if you could even have the tip, like her lower leg.
Come on. This is starting to look like the original pose I had, kind of, but it's better. I hate this because what I wanted so badly was for every element to tell the story better, and what he is critiquing is the story. He is making this mom character so much better in this story.
I think I'll take this foreground leg and darken it more. There we go. Separate it a bit more. Okay, let's I'm gonna flatten down my changes so far. What is that? Oh, that's just that. Okay, flatten down my changes so we can A/B it. All that work just to do that, but I think it's helping. So when it comes to the focal point, every little bit helps, right? I'm gonna grab a linear dodge brush. No, I'm gonna grab an overlay brush, which you can see here is set to overlay, and I'm going to grab a cool light. Now this is a cool light painting. It's an overcast day, which is a gray sky. The sun is blocked, so the light is cold. You've done a nice job in showing that, like the kids' cheeks there getting direct. They're getting a lot of light from that atmospheric sky, and you got that cool color on it versus the warm shadow. So let's play some of that up, okay? The first thing I'm going to do is get a bit more light into this pool of light into the foreground, or sorry, the midground actually, where these characters are like intersecting, like they're coming close to each other here. There's still depth between them, but you know, this middle area. And I'm gonna grab a multiply brush. As you can see, I've got a lot of presets that set to different modes. This brush is on multiply. Now I'm gonna get a warm color, and I'm gonna address some of the contrast on the main kid here. And starting with shadows, I'm gonna get a bit more of a deep shadow in areas. under the armpit, the stomach area, which is fully in shadow from the head. Under his hair, you got a nice deep shadow there. Of course, I'll keep the eyes in light, but you could even do this trick where in a cartoon, you can especially do this, where some of the eye even falls into shadow. And then, of course, at the bottom of the eyeball, that can fall into shadow as well to enforce the idea that the eyeball's round. The upper teeth can fall into shadow. You had that, but you can do it a bit more. And the lower teeth, fine. You can, you probably have room to show individual teeth here. So I'm going to indicate that. Could be just a little minor detail that would be easy to draw in this case, but worth it. And overall, I'm going to, his whole head, if I'm treating his entire head like an egg, it's a very round head, I'm going to overall get this to start falling into shadow as it turns. So the cool colors go away at this bottom part. They can come back at the chin. We can emphasize it a little bit more at the chin to get that look, feeling like a top plane that is exposed to the sky a bit more. And you can also get, feel free to go in, maybe pop out the cheekbone area with a bit more of a highlight, so the nose as well. This cheek here, get that in there. The shadows of the hair, like this part here, these can be quite dark. Right up to the sideburns, the hair can be darker. Even the top of his head, which is getting light, can be darker. And I'm specifically choosing darker because what I'm going to do now is grab the background, set my brush to screen mode, and what I'll do is I'll chop out this nice shape you have for his hair, just like this. And I'm going to lighten the background here. Do the same trick here and here, just to further emphasize the silhouette. Now here on the left, the silhouette's pretty good, so I don't want to change it too much there, but here I do want to lighten it up a bit more. I don't want it too muddy though. I still want to keep that sense of blueness to the color. So I don't want to lose too much saturation is what I'm trying to say there. I like the way you've drawn those background characters. With one small exception, going back to your original, the one thing, again, I like your latest one better, but one thing I like, a quality in this one that I like, that is a bit lower on the totem pole in here that I want to bring back, is like you can tell their poses. Like, you can easily tell what this shape is. You can easily tell, what this person's pose is, and, all the way down the line. Here, I like that you've grouped the background characters as background stuff.
Thank you.
But I think you could be a bit more definitive with like who's who, especially in the, let's call it the foreground background characters. So like this guy here, he's got headphones on and he's looking at his phone. It took me a while to read that.
Oh no.
So
That's the last thing I want to hear. Is that something I didn't read? Oh man.
Like it took me too long to read that. So I'm just going to get the shape. I like the way he's drawn for sure. Like that's a nice profile view of the head. Got his back sort of arcing like this. And I think he's close enough to camera that you have enough compositional room to make this character feel a bit more like these characters, where they are, a bit more or a lot more easy to recognize. Yeah, so I'm not gonna like do this for all of them, but I would bring out like this dog. In fact, that's funny because usually these kids would be dogs in real life. So it's almost like this dog is in on the gag. Like this dog would be like, wait a second, that should be me, kind of thing. And you've kind of got that expression here. I think if you just brought that dog out a little bit more, maybe a bit more light on him, just so the audience, the viewer can get a bit more of a quick read on it. Okay, the shadows, back to the foreground shadows, I think those should be actually warmer. So I'm going to change my brush to overlay, get a warmer color.
That is so red.
Go in there And
Whoa.
warm up these cat
Whoa.
shadows.
No,
A
Marco.
bit of contrast on this foreground. I
No.
like your shapes a lot, by the way. I like how you're drawing this character. A lot of fun. I'm just going to get a bit more contrast and specifically warmth to the color to make sure that the nature of the cool light is shown.
I'm sorry, Marco. That is way too much. You've got like an orange bounce light coming off of the palm of my character. Way too much. I don't like that. I don't like that, Marco. I'll see where you're going with it, but I don't like it right now.
And then I'll go back to my overlay brush, which is here.
Wow.
Use this to increase the cools just a little bit.
Not again.
This lit area.
Oh, that lighting looks like a Star Wars painting or something. Like that's so glowy blue, and then so red. Wow.
The cobblestones themselves are nice. It's just I think they get abstract too quickly. What I mean is these cobblestones are like you've thought about the shapes, you've thought about the crevices between them. They're very nicely done, but it looks like there's kind of an invisible gap. Let me go back to your original. It's not that much different. There's kind of an invisible gap. There's a change right about here. On this side, they're nicely defined. Then here they get abstract. Now I'm all for the abstraction. If anyone knows my paintings, I can be very abstract in my paintings. But I think the grade, the ramp between definitive and abstract is too small. You need more room to show that change. So like these stones here, I think are close enough to camera relative to the foreground that they should be more drawn out. Like put more effort into the drawing of them and defining the things like the borders and their dimension, which you did here. So we're basically looking to do what you did in the foreground, just like 20% less. And then by the time you're at these anything behind the kid, I think you can leave as is. See these blue dots? I'm not quite sure what that is, so I'm gonna get rid of those. Because these cobblestones are just generically in light. Okay, I'm gonna just sample the foreground carriage here. I'm gonna darken this, get more punch. That's nice. I'm gonna take this background and just make sure it's a clean line. In fact, I'll do it on a layer. That's not bad. It's on a layer because now I can erase it out, of course, where I don't want it.
That is so cool. That line, he just drew a line and then erased it in some places. And it really does add to this fisheye lens I had so much. That's really cool.
See what that layer does?
Yeah,
Gives
wow.
it such a much clearer identity.
100%.
Perspective surface. And then you...
Marco, you dog. You dog. That is amazing.
Okay, so...
Oh my gosh.
We are heightening the focal point, just bringing the eye...
He's making this so much better. It's just a better story. Oh. This is humbling. It's good. It's humbling.
Closer to the... reinforcing the focal point is what I should say. We are reinforcing the focal point. We've adjusted the mom's pose there. You can see that. It's kind of paying off, I think. And without compromising your foreground. We've got more punch we've darkened the foreground of the carriage, which gives us more punch with the focal point being in the midground. And if you look at those background characters, we're just bringing some of them out a bit more. There was something about the jaw that was bugging me here. This could be just a personal style thing, but just the way you had the mother's lower jaw curving like that, it made her look like decrepitly old.
And she's not. Like, she's a young mom.
So I'm going to give her some teeth. I mean, it could be the kid's grandmother, I guess, but the face doesn't look like that. I'm just going to give her more of a quote-unquote regular kind of pose here. Less of a witch's jaw. See what you had before. That. So I get it. That does have a certain emotion to it, but there's just something like anatomically that was just hitting me wrong. You can get a bit more ambient occlusion here under the armpit. Pop the mom out a bit more. Ambient occlusion being the darkest part of the shadow. For those who don't know about ambient occlusion, I've got a whole video on it on my channel. It's not the shadow, it's the darkest part of the shadow. I'm also going to bring the plaid pattern into shadow a bit more. Get a bit more of a light and shadow side on the parka overall, including the light. You can bring this out with a bit more light. I just set my brush to color dodge for this. Bit on the face too. Bit of a cooler color now, I think. Just to mix them there. Just to announce the fact that the mom character is by far the most important background character. She is more part of the focal point than she is the background. Okay, there we go. Yeah, that's what I would do. Now, one last thing. It's kind of a big thing, but I don't know what your intent is. There's a lot of empty space up here. Probably should have started with this. I don't know, like if this is for a book, then that's a perfect place for text. If it's not for a book, then I do think you need to put just a bit more of the building back there. And you can, take a piece for what you got here. You've got like awnings. Okay, they're not in my brain. They were more visible, but you have like there's like awnings here. Little, you've got the logo there of a company, of a shop. Just basically the way you've done these buildings, where they're atmospherically in perspective, but they are definitive shapes. Yeah, you'd put that there. I wonder if there's a quick hacky way I can do this. Here, just off screen, I just sampled. Do you see? I selected those guys out, pasted them in, reduced the opacity, and then of course I have to erase out some of the junk down here that came with it. But junk in the context of this illustration, that is, not junk in your old one. And I know I'm completely this is a flat facade of a building, and I've got perspective now. But I just want to show you what I'm talking about. Some kind of.
It's kind of cool, the perspective.
Some kind of presence of buildings. I actually don't mind the perspective. It can kind of work.
Word.
I just want to get these buildings reading a little bit more. It's a gray sky, so I don't want that blue. But instead of see if I sample that. That's basically white. Get a bit more of a bluish color in there. Maybe there's a building back here. You don't need so much contrast up here. And instead of the squarish windows, I actually prefer these vertical windows you had. A bit more visual indication here, Justin, that we're in a busy city. And that means a bit more work on the background.
I really like what he's doing with the buildings here. It's giving so much depth. It's adding to that X marks the spot that I was talking about from the beginning. That's brilliant.
Sky patch. Now that sky, it's an overcast sky, so we want to make sure that we are sufficiently gray, which you did have before, but I want to make sure that we have this kind of hazy kind of sky. And it adds a bit more depth to the piece too. Like it looks like these characters are like funneling through city streets.
Yeah,
Now.
100%.
Intentional. That was just me pasting in. Again, I pasted that in.
Super cool.
Use that as a starting point. Just here. A-B it.
Let's see. There's one last thing.
So much
I
better.
do sometimes. We'll end on this.
So take your painting, duplicate it, and in whatever app you're using here in Photoshop, I'm just going to go to auto color, and it does whatever it does. It's going to do some crazy thing, right? Now, I don't like that, but I like some of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give that layer a layer mask, and then invert the layer mask. It's just very creatively, like as I'm exploring here, just touch it with a little bit of this. It's basically warming up the colors a little bit, so I'm focusing on where the characters are lit.
What is it?
So he's getting rid of that Star Wars-y light that I was talking about earlier. So he kind of fixed the one thing I didn't like about his critique, which is great.
And once I'm happy, as I always do, just merge everything down. So there we go. Going back to black and white. I think we've got a bit more contrast on the character here. In fact, you can maybe even... I'm painting in color, but with my black and white layer applied, I'm just going to darken the hair a little bit for silhouette reasons. There we go. Yeah, so here's this is before and after. I think one last thing while I'm here, I'm just going to select out the shadow part of this kid. So I'm going to select around the light of the hair. Something like this. Grab a multiply brush and just hide that and just deepen. There we go. Get the head to come forward even more against the background. Conversely, I might want to set my brush to color dodge here and lighten the kid's head. I'll deselect, still on color dodge, just with a brush, and just get a bit more of the curly hair to get a bit more identifiable silhouette wise, basically higher contrast. Get rid of my color layer. Or bring back the color, I should say. Didn't notice this before, but when I was A-Bing the final, especially in black and white, I noticed there's still a bit of a lack of contrast with that. Now, you had this, the way you've rendered some of the shadows here is nice. I want to bring some of that back in there. Because this entire head of hair, I think, is a real important thing to be fully in focus, fully in light, get the maximum amount of contrast out of it that we can. There we go. All right, yeah, now the two kids, I think, are really taking the spotlight here. All right, Justin, that's about it from me. I hope this was enjoyable. I hope you've got something out of this. Maybe you can apply some of these notes. And to your viewers, I hope maybe this helps get people thinking about, things to look for when it comes to composition, focal point, framing, dealing with background versus foreground, things like that, value structure. Anyway, thanks for having me do this. It was a lot of fun. Sorry it took me so long to get back to you. But yeah, that's all from me. Wrap it up. Take care and good luck with your work.
Oh, boy. First of all, I want to say thank you, Marco. That is awesome. He's such a great guy. How cool is that? That he is willing to do that for me is really, really cool. I feel horrible. I mean, just humbled, man. I feel like a minor league team who's just been crushing it and had some kind of preseason match where I got to go up against one of the majors. And wow, we had like 12 runs scored on us, and they pitched a perfect game. That's what it feels like. Just absolutely knocked off my high horse. Can I just lie here for a minute? Just feel like I need some therapy or something.
Yesterday, all my troubles seemed so far away. Now it seems as if they're here to stay. Oh, I believe in yesterday. Whoa!